Hi everyone, and you might be wondering, what's this doing on the channel? You haven't played Duelyst in years, or months at least, and that's absolutely true. I haven't played Duelyst in quite a while, but I've gotten thinking. I recently got access to software that allows me to, well, do this, screen capture, and it's been a thing that I've been wanting to do for quite a while, though not in a format that a lot of people usually do. I guess, this isn't a whole, like, oh, let's just play and watch me react crazily to perfectly normal things in the video game. That's not me. So, again, I'm known for analysis, and I really want to analyze a game, especially if it's a game that I already know, but they introduced new mechanics. Duelyst recently updated and gave generals Bloodborne spells, which are basically Duelyst's version of hero powers, I guess. So that's very interesting. But the main force behind this video is the fact that a lot of my content is really hard to make. Videoing myself, editing, as well as, you know, setting up the green screen, making the script, doing the research to be able to even, like, tell you guys anything about any of the characters, even doing something as simple as talking about the gameplay mechanic in BattleCON. It can take a lot of effort to make. These kinds of videos take almost zero effort to make. I just take my mic, sit in front of the computer, and talk while playing a game. It's not that hard if you're playing a card game either, so yeah. So I'd like to propose a new video series for you guys that will update way more regularly than my other videos, simply because of the fact that these are so easy to make. So tell me what you guys think about this by the end of this, and I might release like 1, 2, or 3 of these before I make a final decision, because I'm probably gonna record like 2 to 3 of these videos in one session, and by the end of it all, if you guys don't like it, fine. If you guys do, then I'll keep making them. And this video series, I plan to call it the workshop, and it won't just be Duelyst, but it will be Duelyst mostly for now. Basically, in the workshop series, I'm planning to like keep playing games and just like show you guys my analysis, how I get further and further into the game, and try to adapt new strategies and so on and so forth. So let's look at the collection. In this video, I'm probably just gonna go over some of the stuff about the generals and their new abilities, as well as some new interesting decks that I might want to try out now that I have, well, access to these awesome new general abilities. So I've done some research. Bloodborne spells are indeed spells, at least that's what the UI says, so they probably have some spell synergies. So let's think about that while we're doing this. So let's start off with Leonar. Leonar is known as that faction that has a lot of efficient units, has a lot of removal, and they can easily play some mid-rangey, provokey units that are really dominating in the mid game. So we can see that, from what I've noticed, is that many of the Bloodborne spells actually aim to highlight 2 different strategies that the developers probably want you guys to do when playing Duelyst. So we'll see how those 2 strategies can be easily seen in the Bloodborne spells of the appropriate generals. Let's start off with Argyon Highmane. Highmane has this awesome Bloodborne spell that gives a minion nearby your general +2 attack. This can be very potent, especially in this faction. Leonar has access to a lot of high health, low attack units. Suddenly turning them into bigger threats because you give them +2 attack can be quite devastating against anyone, really. Imagine a 5'10" Ironcleave. That's insane. So if you think about it, this might make you play a deck that's more aggressive, or basically just make your threats even bigger threats because of the fact they have more attack, which means that they can probably kill a lot more of your opponent's units before they go down. So this probably goes for some aggressive mid-range decks. On the other hand, Sunforge over here has a Bloodborne spell that restores 3 health to a friendly minion. It's basically an Arwean Nexus, if you think about it. It allows your units to stay on the field longer, which means that, you know, you get more use out of them, they can trade more. And what's nice is that it's 3 health, which means that it's more than the 2 attack most generals have, which means that units effectively live on forever if they keep hitting your opponent general's face. However, again, most small units don't have more than 3 health, so you probably need to play something that costs like 4 or maybe 5 to be able to gain the full benefit out of that ability. But aside from that, it's pretty good. So again, this is probably more of the mid-rangey stuff because, you know, you can start trading with your Silver Guard Knights and your Iron Cleaves and heal them. Or, you know, get into your later game threats like Dark Nemesis or something, and, you know, prevent them from dying. It's kind of like, you know, control decks really love their heals and healing their units, so I think Sunforge allows for that quite easily. Plus, she has a really awesome attack. So, in terms of this, I don't really feel interested in making a Leonar deck, mostly because I main Leonar. I'm kind of sick of playing them for months. But one thing to note is that these are spells. So maybe an Owl deck might work, and that interests me because effectively Argion's ability gives Owl +4 attack when you Divine Bond it, and since Divine Bond was recently buffed from 3 mana to 2 mana, this might prove to be quite an interesting deck, but we'll see, we'll see. Songhai. Songhai is one of my favorite factions before these recent patches. Recent patches made draw 2 cards into draw 1 card, and then they removed basically every OTK in the game, which made me sad because my Songhai deck was an OTK Songhai that focused on using Mana Forger. Oh, nope, not that mana. Mana Forger and 8 gates and Phoenix Fires to basically, you know, deal 27 damage in 1 turn. That's pretty awesome. But now we can't do that anymore. So let's talk about Songhai. Songhai is very interesting because we have Kalio-San's ability and Riva Eventide's ability. Kalio-San's ability allows you to move a minion up to 2 spaces. A friendly minion up to 2 spaces. So, what does this mean? It basically reads, hey, make a backstab deck. Make a backstab deck. Which is very interesting, but the thing is, remember, there are like only 3 backstab units that actually gain benefit from it. So, aside from that, what else can this move a friendly minion up to 2 spaces do? Well, it can give your minions reach. You can play them out of your opponent's reach, and during your turn, move them, and then use the Bloodborne spell to move them again to get them into your opponent's face. However, Songhai doesn't really need reach, simply because they have stuff like Inner Focus, Mist Dragon Seal, which is just a superior version of this ability, by the way, and, you know, Tusk Boars that have Rush, Phoenix Fires that can hit face, and then Spiral Techniques that can hit face. So it's like, you don't need this ability that much, so I don't think we'll get a lot of usage out of it, outside of, like, you know, comboing with Backstab, but it's a pretty straightforward deck, I guess. On the other hand, Riva Eventide is a way more interesting ability for me because it summons a Heartseeker nearby your general. So I'm assuming that's a random space nearby your general. But the Heartseeker is a 1 mana 1/1 range. So effectively, this ability reads draw a Heartseeker and play it for free. For 1 mana. That's pretty freaking good, if you ask me, considering the fact that Songhai is known to have a lot of attack buffs. So you have Saber Spine Seal, you have your Mist Dragon Seals, you have your Death Strikes, and of course you have the ever-lovable Killing Edge. All of these can work together to effectively give you a really, really powerful removal tool that doesn't cost any mana. And that's very, very good. Besides, this summons a permanent unit onto the board, which pressures your opponent way hard. Previously, I made a deck that was all about using range units like Heartseeker to control the board while summoning a bunch of aggro units to face your opponent, and of course that involves using Lantern Fox as well. So if you think about that, this ability, this Bloodborne spell, allows us to make that deck that much easier and that much more awesome, and I really want to make a deck centered around Riva Eventide. Besides, look at her, she's so awesome. Next up, Vitruvian. I think Vitruvian got the short end of the stick when it came to Bloodborne spells. We have Sinus Saj and Xeric Starstrider. Saj's ability is your general deals double damage to minions this turn. So this accentuates the control aspect of Vitruvian, specifically the control aspect focusing on artifacts. This basically doubles the effectiveness of your artifacts plus doubles the effectiveness of your general in terms of removing things. But remember, it's only to minions, so you can't deal face damage with it anymore. And, you know, most artifact decks aren't about removing minions, they're more about hitting face. and removing minions at the same time due to the, you know, collateral damage that you gain from using your wildfire onks. So I don't think it's that useful of ability, because most of the time if you're not wearing an artifact, this just basically reads deal 2 extra damage with your basic attack, which is pretty good. But if you compare it to Xeric Star Strider's ability, which is to summon a 2/2 Wind Dervish with rush in a nearby random space, you'll see that these two abilities are essentially the same. Without artifacts, this also technically deals 4 damage to anything you want, albeit somewhat randomly. But remember, this Wind Dervish therefore encourages you to play a Dervish deck. And again, you do stuff like Third Wishes, do stuff with Portal Guardians and so on and so forth. So like that aggro token Vitruvian deck is highly incentivized when you're playing Xeric Star Strider. So there's that. I don't really find any interesting decks to play with these new abilities. My old Vitruvian deck was like an artifact Vitruvian, so maybe I'll use Cyanus Saj in that one, but I'm not really sure with that. So maybe not, we'll see. Next up is Abyssian. So we have Abyssian's Kasiva Soul Reaper and Lilith Blight Chaser. Soul Reaper, aside from having an awesome name, has a pretty awesome Bloodborne spell that allows her to deal 1 damage to a minion, and if it dies, it turns the space into Shadow Creep. Needless to say, this is all about a Shadow Creep deck. And Shadow Creep decks can usually be very slow because you need to get to 7 mana to cast your Shadow Nova and cash out all that damage. But this is a very good control ability because it allows you to deal 1 damage to a minion, which is very powerful considering the fact that a lot of cards in Duelyst are balanced around generals having 2 health. So if you look at stuff like your Healing Mystics, for example, these things which didn't die to a general attack now technically die to a general attack plus Abyssian's Bloodborne spell, and it makes Shadow Creep. So all of that together makes for a really awesome control deck that can result in you winning with Shadow Creep. I want to make a deck around this general. It's so amazing to me because I've always wanted to make a Shadow Creep deck, but there wasn't enough Shadow Creep support. But now that we have a general that's all about Shadow Creep, I can't wait to play her. However, as I've said, they're trying to promote multiple playstyles. So Lilith's playstyle is all about Death Watch, because it allows her to summon 2 Wraithlings nearby your general. I'm assuming those are random spaces once again. Or no, maybe they're not. No, just summon 2 Wraithlings nearby your general. So this is a 1 mana card. If you think that's not that good, look at this card. Wraithling Swarm is a 3 mana summon 3 1/1 Wraithlings nearby each other. So this is essentially the same card, costs 2 less for 1 less Wraithling. That's insane if you think about it. That's freaking amazing, quite frankly. So in the end, this is what you want to play if you're just playing the typical old Death Watch Abyssian. Now let's move on to some Magmar. Magmar is quite interesting because you have 2 playstyles yet again. Starhorn the Seeker, which allows both players to draw a card. And this is a very interesting strategy to think about because Duelyst went from drawing 2 cards per turn to drawing 1 card per turn. And this is a big thing because it shifted the meta from being really fast to being really slow. But I think it also had the secondary effect wherein you couldn't run as much removal as you used to, because before you could afford to run like 1/3 of your deck as removal because of the fact that you draw 2 cards per turn, so you'll eventually draw into threats anyway. But now that we only draw 1 card per turn, if you have 1/3 of your deck as removal, it'll be really bad if you just end up drawing a lot of removal and none of your threats, because again, playing no threats is not good in this game, trust me. So drawing 2 cards basically turns the game back into old Duelyst. And since you're Magmar, you have a lot, and I mean a lot of removal at your disposal. So maybe this allows for your old style control Magmar to come up once again. However, on the other hand, I feel like the more interesting ability is Baath the Immortals, which allows you to give your general +1 attack. Again, when we talked about Kasiva Soul Reaper, we talked about how most units in Duelyst are balanced around the fact that your general has 2 attack. But by giving your general more attack, you can effectively kill a lot more stuff than you used to. So a lot of people will think that this is a very good control general, but I think it will be very awesome in an aggro deck because it allows you to hit your general to hit the opponent general's face with your face and effectively deal more damage to them than they deal to you. And of course, when they try to trade their units into your face, their units die because you have more attack than usual. Though I do remember that people have said that this gets dispelled, but we'll see how prevalent the spell is in the current meta because I've never played for months. Next up is Fey Bloodwing. Fey Bloodwing has a Bloodborne spell that allows you to deal 2 damage to all enemies in the column in the general's column. Enemy general's column? Basically, it means deal 2 damage to the general and everything in a straight line. Which is okay. If your opponent knows that you're playing Fey Bloodwing, though, they won't play any of their units in that column. So, I guess it's for space control, I guess. But most of the time, this will just be deal 2 damage to the general, which isn't that bad. But again, we have stuff like Vitruvian's abilities. So, maybe. So, this is basically another way to smork or face your opponent, right? So, it's like, deal 2 damage to opponent every time, which isn't that bad, actually. And then, of course, we have Caro Winterblade's. Caro Winterblade's ability is to give each minion in your hand +1/+1. This is a mid-rangey ability, which is probably is good in the late game. It actually has a lot of applications because it can turn your bad small units into bigger threats. And of course, for example, your Hard Sister, which is a 3/2, which is bad because again, your opponents generally have 2 attack. Well, your Hard Sister now becomes a 4/3, which is amazing if you come to think of it, especially if you've buffed a lot of units in your hand with this ability. Remember, I think these stack, so if you can keep a unit in your hand, eventually at some point it will become super value. I don't necessarily want to make a deck around this, but I find this ability very interesting, so maybe we'll make a deck around this later on. So, what are the decks that I'm very interested in making? Number 1, Riva Eventide's minion-based Songhai with a lot of removal and buff cards. I also want to make a Shadow Creep, Shadow Nova Control Cassiver Soul Reaper deck. And finally, I want to make a Vath the Immortal Face Magmar. As you can see, I have a Face Magmar here. I actually had a botched recording earlier. So we'll remake the deck right now. So, who's the general that we pick? We pick Vath the Immortal. So what's our strategy here? It's to go face. And how do we go face? With tons of damage. So we basically try to put in the usual aggro suspects. For example, your Flameblood Warlocks. And of course your Healing Mystics, as well as your Primus Fists. However, I do think a Jaxi is okay, but I'm not sure about the current meta just yet, so maybe like that Soul Reaper version will make stuff like Jaxi bad, but I'm not sure quite yet. Of course, Jaxi did get the nerf. So since we're going face, we go Adamantine Claws. And we also go Elucidators. Have we gone face enough? Maybe we go all in face with Phalanxar too. I don't know. I haven't played this game in a while. Young Sidar for more face damage because, you know, it's just a decent 2-drop. And then, okay, this deck's main problem is going to be draw. So we have Dance of Dreams, but I think we should also put a Void Hunter in there. Void Hunters are pretty good for drawing cards and dealing lots of damage to opponent's face. And then we should still probably put the Dance of Dreams, but maybe only 2 copies. Because we don't need that many draw in this deck. Give a friendly damage minion +2 attack and +4 health. I mean, that's okay, I guess. Compared to a Greater Fortitude. I mean, my units don't really have a lot of health, right? So maybe a Greater Fortitude would be better. I don't know. I don't know. So we'll have to see how that goes. So since we're hitting face a lot, we might want to put a Emerald Rejuvenator. Okay, and here's the thing. I think a lot of people are running slow cards now. So maybe a Silence or 2 won't be so bad. Maybe, I'm not sure. Of course, Saber Spine Tigers, because we're going face. And... oh, of course. Songweaver is OP. Put 3x of it in every deck. Because it's a buff and it gives your stuff flying. And maybe we can just put Dire Tide Frenzy for like AoE removal. So this is what I think would be a somewhat decent face deck. Note that I haven't played in a while, so maybe this deck is absolutely horrible. Let's call this Face Magmar. And so that's my deck building strategy. Again, this is like absolutely probably a horrible deck, but I guess that's the point. We are supposed to iterate on decks. So I really want to make this face Magma work, because I feel like the strategy of buffing your attack, hitting their face, and then having them trade into your general is a very interesting strategy, but it requires me to be very, very aggressive. Okay, so I'm against this guy, XG. You can see all my banners here. You can see how much I love Songhai. Okay, so let's get rid of some of the cards that we might not need just yet. Songweaver might not be that good early game, but aside from that, I think the rest of this hand is pretty amazing. So these Void Hunters are going to be really good later on. And well, good luck to you too, sir, madame. We do a Flameblood Warlock over here, and there's some Flickering Shadows over there. I don't know why. I guess we can sub out one Void Hunter, because we're probably looking for a... Yep, there we go. So we now have a curve, and we draw one card. Okay, this is pretty interesting. So if my opponent does end up summoning a bunch of units, I can then remove it with the Dark Tide Frenzy. Of course, I can synergize that with the Saber Spine Tiger for some instant AoE. Of course, I could have put Macintor War Beasts. I probably should, because it's like one of the faction's best cards, right? But I'm not sure just yet on how effective that will be. Opening Gambit, each player and both players. Oh, oh, they changed the stats. Okay, because Blazehound used to be a 4-2. And you can obviously tell how hilarious a 4-2 unit is. So Healing Mystic might not be that useful. We gain access to multiple mana this turn. Blazehound's pretty okay. Anyway, we can do Saber Spine Tiger, do this, and hit face! I mean, it'll die either way, right? So that's fine. Okay, so we've hit face. We have the life. Oh, that's a pretty awesome attack. Okay, so next turn, we're gonna overload. So we have 3 mana next turn, technically, because I wanna absolutely use that for an overload. End turn. Duelyst does this sometimes. There we go. I think there's something wrong with like the internet, I guess. So my opponent is doing some pretty weird plays. I don't know what he's doing. Kinetic Surge. Give each minion in your hand. Oh, it's a protect guy. Do I really care? I think the answer to that is absolutely a no. You can just put a Void Hunter here. Actually, we put a Void Hunter here. So I put that there because I want to, I guess, prevent his movement towards this direction. In Duelyst, positioning is very important, so I oftentimes really love cornering opponents. If I remember correctly, Vanar doesn't really have anything that exploits this triangle positioning. Magma does, of course. Anything with Frenzy will abuse this to heck. But I don't think this will be that important. Also, I might want to remove this Emerald Rejuvenator from my hand because I feel like I'm closing in on him. Okay. I basically have so much damage in my hand, it's insane. So he'll obviously trade this into this. As expected. That draws me a card. Oh, well. Ooh. So much damage to me and him. So much damage. He better play this first if he's going to summon a unit, right? Unless he's just going to summon a 5-drop. Overload looks like Bot's like really angry. Ah, that's Bot's face. Ah. So he kinetic surges as I have predicted. Where's your unit, man? Where's your unit? What are you summoning? Okay, so think about the strategy behind this. This thing is going to be really annoying. Force Field is a very interesting mechanic that I don't have much experience with. It's basically like renewable Divine Shield. That's pretty interesting. Now he's healing himself. So next turn I gain access to all of that. I probably want to mulligan one of these elucidators. Okay, interesting. Because I can move this up here and gain access to 6 mana. And is that useful? Oh, absolutely useful. Does this have force field again? It doesn't show. I'm assuming it has force field again. So if I put this here, and then I put this here, I can then fly you here. Huh? Oh, it doesn't have flying anymore. Okay, fine. Because Songweaver used to give flying. That's why it was broken. Go face. Actually, I win next turn if he doesn't heal, because this gives me +4 attack. So that's like the strategy. That was my strategy, and it's coming to fruition, as you can see here. As I've predicted, I think this ability is quite slow. He only got like 1 benefit out of it. Oh, and Songweaver's now at 3/3. Okay, so I'm putting cards in my deck without fully reading what they're doing. Oh, I'm so sorry about that. So I actually win, right? Because these two deal 8 damage. So unless he heals for more than that and blocks my general at the same time, he has to like do so much. That's pointless. Swarm me more, son. Yeah, he's gonna block my general, which I'm assuming is... Oh, Crossbones. Maybe he really hates Mechazor or something. And I think that wins me the game, so that was pretty GG. Well, of course, I just have to execute on it, right? 1, 2, 3, bam. Oh, first win of the day. Yay, me. Okay, so let's do an analysis of what happened in that game. So, it seems that my strategy, or at least my theory, works, right? So I summon a bunch of units, I go face with all of them, my opponent is then forced to trade into them or trade into my general. Due to my general having higher attack than usual, I'm able to gain these trades that I usually don't gain. And of course, when I hit them in the face, I deal way more damage than they deal to me. This forces them to either heal or do something to stop me from hitting them in the face. And this just gives me more opportunities to hit them in the face. So that seems to be a very effective strategy. Songweaver might not be as good as I thought it was, since it doesn't get flying anymore. But it does synergize well with my Saber Spine Tiger and a few other of my units. So I guess it's not that bad. But we'll see. Like, it synergizes with Void Hunter very well. So that pretty much does it for this video. So if you guys really like the concept, or like the concept of this workshop, do tell me, because I will take your feedback and I will try to make it better or something more entertaining for you guys. Without much else to say, don't forget to check your cards, because I totally forgot to check Songweaver. And I'll see you again. Thank you, and good night.